Back in 2020, when the world was still falling apart from the pandemic, I started driving for Uber just to survive. I'd lost my retail job, and bills didn't wait. If you've ever driven nights, you know the mix. Drunk riders, awkward silence, strange small talk, most of it harmless. But one Friday night in October wasn't. It was just past midnight when I dropped someone off near a quiet hotel on the edge of town. My phone pinged almost right after, "New ride, 6 minutes away. Pickup, a bowling alley in a dead strip mall." When I got there, the parking lot was empty, just a few weak lights and the hum of the night. The alley looked closed. And that's when I saw him. Standing alone under the light, hoodie up, staring at the ground. The app said Derek. I rolled down my window. "You Derek?" He looked up, then nodded, and got in. He was standing alone under one of the parking lot lights, still as a statue. Gray hoodie, jeans, tall maybe 6'2", with his hands buried deep in his pockets and his head tilted down like he was studying the ground. I slowed the car and waited for him to move, but he didn't. He finally looked up, his face half in shadow, eyes catching the light for a second before lowering again. The air felt heavier. I rolled the window down. "You Derek?" I asked. He gave a small nod, walked over, and slid into the back seat behind me. I started the trip and glanced at the GPS. "This address, right?" His voice came out quiet, flat. "Yeah, that's right." Nothing about him seemed drunk or high, just empty, detached. I started driving. For the first few minutes, he said nothing. Every time I looked into the mirror, he was staring straight ahead, eyes locked on the back of my head. No phone, no fidgeting, just that stare. I tried to break the silence. "Long night?" He hesitated. "Just needed to get out of there." "Out of where?" I asked. "Doesn't matter." His tone shut me up fast. We drove through quieter streets until the city glow disappeared. The air felt colder. The GPS said 20 minutes, but the farther we went, the darker it got. Trees lined both sides, no streetlights, no houses in sight. About 15 minutes in, he leaned forward suddenly. "Actually, pull into that driveway." He pointed at a house on the right. The place looked abandoned. No lights, peeling paint, grass up to the windows. "This your place?" I asked. "Just pull in." His tone was sharp. I hesitated but turned into the driveway and stopped near the porch. He didn't move, just stared at the house. "Everything all right?" I asked. No answer. Then quietly, "Wait here." He opened the door, stepped out, and walked toward the side of the house until he vanished into the dark. The door clicked shut and I was alone. The engine hummed, dashboard clock glowing 12:46. 2 minutes passed, then 3. My gut twisted. Nothing about this felt right. I ended the trip in the app and reached for the gear shift to back out. That's when I saw him coming back, fast. He walked straight toward the car, hands empty, face tight with something between anger and excitement. Every instinct told me not to unlock the doors, but I did. He opened the back door and slid in again, breathing heavier. "Take me to the other place." "What other place?" I asked. "Just drive. I'll tell you need to put it in the app." Silence. He kept staring through the mirror. "I can't take you anywhere unless you put it in the app." Another pause. Then flatly, "Take me back to where you picked me up." I didn't argue. I just drove. The road felt narrower, the air heavier. He didn't speak, but I could feel his eyes on me the entire time. My palms were slick on the wheel, my heart beat louder than the engine. Every time I looked up, he was staring. Unblinking, calm, almost curious. I tried again, forcing a small laugh. "Rough night?" "You could say that," he said. "Everything okay?" "Not yet." His answer chilled me. When we reached the strip mall again, I parked under the same weak light. My heart was pounding. Before I could say anything, he leaned forward, voice low. "You ever wonder how you're gonna die?" I froze. I tried to laugh it off. Not really something I think about. He didn't move, didn't smile. I think about it all the time. The air inside the car felt thin. Then he opened the door and stepped halfway out, pausing like he'd forgotten something. He stood there for a moment, half inside, half outside, the light catching one side of his face. I waited for him to close the door, to walk away, to end this nightmare. Instead, he looked straight at me and said, calm and slow, "You picked the wrong guy up tonight." Then he shut the door and walked off into the darkness behind the bowling alley. I sat there, gripping the wheel so tight my fingers ached. The flickering light above went out completely. For a long time, I didn't move. My mind kept replaying his words over and over, like a recording stuck on loop. "You picked the wrong guy up tonight." I don't know what he meant, or what he was doing at that abandoned house, but part of me knows if he'd made a different choice, maybe I wouldn't be here telling this story. I sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for something to make sense. The trip was gone, no name, no photo, no record, just blank. I drove home, checking my mirrors every few seconds, heart pounding like he was still in the back seat. Uber support said it was probably a glitch, but I know what I saw. I know he got in. I know what he said, "You picked the wrong guy up tonight." I've never seen him again, and I hope I never do. But every time I get a request in a dark parking lot or from someone who doesn't speak, I remember that night. I still wonder what he meant and if he ever found the right car. It was back in 2021 when I was driving for Uber full-time. I live in a city that's packed with tourists, especially during summer, so if you keep your hours steady, rideshare can actually pay pretty well. I usually work nights. Less traffic, better tips, and honestly, I've always been a night owl. That night started like any other Saturday. Around 1:30 a.m., the streets were busy with bar crowds and late-night laughter, echoing down the sidewalks. I had just dropped off a group of drunk college kids who'd spent the whole ride screaming over each other. So when I got a new request that looked quiet, I was relieved. The name on the screen said Chris. Pickup was listed on a small side street just off downtown. Nothing unusual, until I noticed where the pin was dropped. Behind an old strip mall, not near any bars, apartments, or hotels. Just an empty lot. I figured it was probably another bad GPS marker. That kind of thing happens all the time. So I hit accept, turned the car around, and headed that way, not knowing that ride would stay with me long after the night was over. When I pulled up, he was standing under a streetlight at the corner, hoodie up, phone in hand, staring at the ground. "Chris?" I called. He gave a short nod, walked over, and got in the back seat without a word. He didn't smell like alcohol, didn't seem high, just quiet. Too quiet. I tried to make small talk, but he didn't answer, just stared out the window. I figured maybe he wasn't the chatty type and started the ride. The GPS said 25 minutes to a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. The farther we drove, the darker it got. No lights, no cars, just the hum of my tires and his breathing behind me. About 5 minutes in, I noticed something strange. He had his phone in his lap, flashlight on, shining faintly toward my seat. The light hit my mirror and it made my chest tighten. "Everything okay back there?" I asked. He mumbled, "Yeah," turned it off and went silent again. The rest of the drive was dead quiet. Couldn't shake the feeling that something about him was off. His stillness, his calm, the way he seemed detached. Like his body was there, but his mind wasn't. When we reached the address, the house was completely dark. No porch light, no car, no movement. I put the car in park. "This the place?" He didn't answer. I turned around. "Hey, you good?" He kept staring out the window, then finally nodded once. "All right," I said. "Have a good night." He didn't move. Then he stepped out, left the door open, and stood facing the house. Seconds passed, then a full minute. I was about to say something when he turned around and said, "I need to go back." His tone was flat, emotionless. "Back where?" I asked. "Where you picked me up." I told him he needed to request a new ride, but he didn't move. Then he said something that sent chills down my spine. "I can't. They're not gone yet." My voice cracked a little. "Who's not gone?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, breathing hard, staring at the house. Finally, he stepped back, closed the door, and started walking toward the porch. The house looked abandoned, windows black, grass overgrown, silence everywhere. I watched until he disappeared into the dark, then drove off, trying to shake the unease. I stopped a few blocks away at a 24-hour gas station to grab a drink and clear my head. I was inside for maybe 4 minutes. When I came back out, my heart stopped. He was sitting in the back seat again, same hoodie, same lifeless stare. I swear I had locked the doors. My hands trembled as I opened the driver's side door. "How did you get back in?" I asked. His voice was low, steady. "Take me back." Told him I was calling the cops, and he leaned forward, whispering, "They're still in the house." I froze. There was something broken in his tone. Fear, guilt, maybe both. I asked softly, "Whose house is that?" He said, "My parents." I asked if he lived there, and he whispered, "Not anymore." My stomach turned. Against my better judgment, I started driving back. Every instinct screamed to stop, but I couldn't. He was rocking slightly in his seat, breathing heavier. "They won't leave," he whispered, "no matter what I do." When we got back to the house, it looked exactly the same. Dark, cold, lifeless. He got out without saying a word and walked toward the porch. I waited a few seconds, then drove away, locking every door and checking the mirror until I hit downtown again. I don't know what he meant by they, or what he thought was waiting inside that house, but sometimes, when I drive through that part of town, I still see that same house. Still dark, still empty, and I wonder if he ever went inside or if something else was waiting for him to come back. I parked a few blocks away, under the glow of a flickering streetlight, my hands gripping the wheel while my mind tried to catch up with what had just happened. I wanted to call the cops, but what could I even say? That a quiet passenger got into my car twice, said strange things, and then vanished into the dark? Technically, he hadn't broken any laws, but something about that night didn't feel right. It still doesn't. I drove home in silence, every shadow in my mirrors making my chest tighten. I didn't sleep. The next morning I reported it to Uber, hoping they'd flag his account. But the more I thought about it, the more I wished I'd called the police. Maybe he needed help. Maybe something was wrong in his head. Or maybe something was wrong in that house. I'll never know if that place was really his parents' home, or if they, whoever he meant, were ever real at all. But every time I drive past that side of town, I can't help glancing down that same road, half expecting to see him still standing there, waiting. I was 18, living alone with my dog in a small apartment about 8 miles outside of town. It was quiet, peaceful most of the time. Ordering food out there could be a bit of a hassle, but I'd gotten used to it. I always used Uber Eats. Fast, easy, and honestly, it felt safe. You hear weird delivery stories online sometimes, but you never think they'll happen to you. At least, that's what I thought. It was a Friday evening, just past 6. I'd spent the last couple of hours cleaning, wiping counters, folding laundry, getting everything ready before my boyfriend came over for the weekend. We're long distance, so I only get to see him on Saturdays, and I like everything to look perfect when he's here. By the time I finished, I was starving, but I didn't want to mess up the kitchen again after I'd just cleaned it, so I opened the app, scrolled through the usual places, and placed an order. My driver's name popped up, white Honda Fit Sport. Normal, nothing unusual. I added my usual delivery note. Leave at the door, please. Contactless delivery. Living alone, I try to keep things simple, safe, and low contact. I had no idea that decision might have saved my life that night. I was sitting in my living room, half watching TV, when my phone buzzed. "Your food has been delivered." I jumped up, starving and ready to eat. But when I opened the door, there was nothing. No bag, no order. I looked down the hall, checking every door, thinking maybe the driver dropped it off at the wrong apartment. Nothing. I was about to message him when I heard a knock. It was my next-door neighbor holding my food. He looked uneasy. "Hey," he said, "I grabbed this from your driver. He was standing by your window looking inside." I didn't like the way he was acting. I thanked him, though. My stomach tightened a little. I brushed it off, went back inside, and tried to forget about it. I ate, watched a movie, and tried to convince myself it was nothing. Later, I took a shower, locked up, and got ready for bed. My dog, a tiny 5-pound Morkie, curled up beside me as I called my boyfriend. We talked for a while before I finally drifted off. Sometime in the night, my dog started growling, a low, shaky sound that made my chest tighten. He was staring at the window. I told him to quiet down and tried to go back to sleep, but 15 minutes later, the sound that woke me wasn't barking. It was knocking, hard, from the window. My heart froze. My dog went crazy, barking, whining, growling all at once. I couldn't move. I pulled the sheets over me, leaving a small gap so I could still see the window. Someone was outside. I grabbed my phone and whispered to 911, explaining that someone was in my backyard. My voice was shaking as I told the operator that my window didn't lock properly, that he could lift it up if he tried. She told me to move to another room and that officers were on their way. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and waited by the counter. Every minute felt like an hour. When I finally looked out the window, my stomach dropped. Parked across the street was the same white Honda Fit. The Uber driver's car. My mind was racing. He wasn't in the driver's seat. My apartment sits next to an open field. No buildings, just empty space. and that's where his car was parked, facing my home. I whispered to myself, "He's in my backyard." When the police arrived, I almost cried with relief. I could barely speak as I told them everything. One officer stayed with me while the others checked my backyard. Another went toward the car in the field. When they came back, I'll never forget the look on their faces. There were footprints in the mud. Fresh, deep ones, leading right up to my bedroom window. But the car? Empty. The driver was gone. Panic washed over me. If he wasn't arrested and he wasn't in the car, where was he? My neighbor came out, worried, and explained to the officers what happened earlier, how he stopped the driver from looking through my windows. The cops thanked him, told me to stay alert, and left. My neighbor offered to let me sleep at his place that night, but I said no. I wanted to believe it was over. I wanted to believe I was safe. Hours later, around 2 a.m., a loud banging shook my front door. My heart nearly stopped. I heard shouting, "Police!" I hesitated, terrified to open it. When I finally did, it was the same female officer from earlier. She looked relieved. "We caught him," she said. "He came back. He was walking toward your door again. We waited nearby just in case he returned." I stood there, shaking, realizing that if they hadn't stayed, I might have opened that door to him instead. She told me he was in custody now, that I didn't have to worry anymore. But I still do. I think about how close he came. How he knew where I lived, what my car looked like, what window led to my bedroom. Even now, whenever I order food, I double-check every lock before it arrives. And every time I hear footsteps outside at night, I wonder if someone's watching. Waiting. I thanked the officer and closed the door, but I couldn't sleep after that. Every sound in the apartment made me jump. The fridge, the wind, even my dog shifting on the bed. I kept seeing his car in my mind, parked across the street. Since that night, I've never used Uber Eats when I'm home alone. I was 26, visiting my fiancée Sarah in Washington, D.C. for her basic training graduation. It was a big moment for her and her family, so I flew in a week early to spend time together before things got busy. We stayed at my hotel and spent a day exploring the city. The Lincoln Memorial, the Capitol, the White House, all the spots I'd only ever seen in pictures. By the end, we were exhausted, so Sarah ordered an Uber for the ride back. It seemed like a normal trip, but it's one I'll never forget. After about 10 minutes of waiting, a gray minivan finally pulled up along the curb in front of us. It wasn't in a parking spot, just stopped right in the middle of the road. Sarah looked down at her phone, then motioned for me that it was ours. I got up, followed her to the car, and watched as she opened the back door and asked, "Uber for Sarah?" The man behind the wheel gave a small nod, but didn't say a word. No greeting, no smile, just silence. She stepped inside, and without thinking, I followed. The door clicked shut behind me, and the engine started almost immediately. Looking back now, I can't believe how careless we were. We never checked the license plate or asked his name. I didn't even think to verify the car because Sarah had the app and everything felt normal in the moment. We both sat in the back and the driver didn't say a word. That alone felt strange. Every other Uber driver I'd ever had at least greeted us or confirmed the name again, but this man just stared ahead, hands tight on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the road. His silence filled the car like fog. Still, I was tired from walking all day, so I leaned my head back and closed my eyes, trying to relax. Maybe he was just one of those quiet types, I told myself. A few minutes later, Sarah tapped my arm. Her face was pale. She didn't speak, just pointed to her phone. I leaned in and saw the route on the screen. The GPS showed a completely different direction from where we were going. The app said we should have been heading south toward our hotel. But the car? It was going north. Before I could say anything, a notification popped up on Sarah's screen. "Your driver has arrived." It was followed by a message from the real Uber driver, asking where we were. My stomach dropped. I felt my throat tighten as I realized what that meant. We weren't in the right car. The man driving us wasn't our Uber driver at all. I looked at the profile photo in the app, and it didn't match the person in front of us. That's when the fear hit me. The silence, the wrong direction, everything suddenly made sense. We had gotten into a stranger's car. I looked toward the front, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't know if this man planned to rob us, hurt us, or worse. I didn't want to find out. Trying to keep my voice calm, I leaned forward slightly and said, "Hey, I think we changed our minds. You can just let us out here." He didn't respond. He didn't even look at us. He just kept driving, eyes locked on the road. The only sign that he'd heard me was the quick flicker of his gaze in the rearview mirror. He stared at me for several seconds, expressionless, before turning his eyes back to the road. Every second of that stare made my skin crawl. The tension in that car was unbearable. I knew we had to get out. Fast. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small pocket knife I always carry. My hand was shaking, but I flipped the blade open anyway. My voice came out stronger than I expected. "I know you're not our Uber driver," I said. "I don't know what you're planning to do, but if you don't pull this car over, right now, I swear I'll use this." The words came out louder than I meant them to, and for a moment, the car went completely silent. Then he looked at me again in the mirror, his eyes meeting mine. I knew he saw the knife in my hand. Without a word, he slowed down, pulled to the side of the road, and hit the button that unlocked the doors. Sarah and I didn't wait for a second longer. We threw open the doors, jumped out, and ran as fast as we could toward the nearest lit area we could see. As soon as we were out, the man sped off, tires screeching on the pavement. We stopped a few feet away, trying to catch our breath. Sarah was shaking, trying to stop herself from crying, while my own heart was still racing like I'd just run a marathon. I kept looking down the street, half expecting that car to turn around and come back. Sarah quickly grabbed her phone and messaged the real Uber driver, explaining what had happened and asking him to meet us where we were. When he arrived a few minutes later, we made sure to check everything, license plate, photo, name, before we even got near the car. Once we were safely inside, we told him the whole story. His face went pale as he listened. When we finished, he took a deep breath and said, "You guys are lucky, really lucky. There have been reports lately of people pretending to be Uber drivers around here. They wait near popular spots where tourists hang out, people who won't think twice about getting into a car when they hear their name." He explained that there had been several disappearances over the last few months linked to these fake drivers. No one knew exactly what happened to the victims, but the police suspected abductions or trafficking. My blood ran cold. I couldn't stop picturing how easily we could have been another story on the news. Couple goes missing after entering wrong car. The thought made me sick. The driver told us the only reason we were probably safe was because we caught on early, and because I was armed. If we'd been another mile or two away, he said, we might not have gotten out at all. When we finally got back to the hotel, Sarah collapsed into my arms, crying quietly while I tried to act calm for her sake. But the truth is, I was just as shaken. I couldn't stop replaying every second. His silent stare, the wrong turns, the cold way he ignored us. It felt like we had brushed right up against something terrible and somehow slipped away. Since that night, I've never gotten into an Uber without double-checking everything. The license plate, the driver's photo, even the smell of the car. And I always tell people now, never assume, always check, always ask. Because monsters don't just hide in the dark, sometimes they wait behind the wheel, pretending to offer you a ride home. We made it back to the hotel safely and reported everything to the police. They took our statements, but we never heard back. That silence still haunts me, because it means he's probably still out there. I keep thinking how close we were, one wrong move and it could have ended differently. So please, always check your driver's name, photo, and license plate. If something feels off, don't get in. Trust your gut. It might save your life. Have you ever had a ride that didn't feel right? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this one.